Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and this is part two to the fixed wireless access story from Fierce Wireless. This is me talking about Verizon on this second part. So, fixed wireless access takes on starring role in 5G for T-Mobile and Verizon. So, you guys who watched the T-Mobile part of it, you heard my commentary on T-Mobile and that I feel, and I'm very confident that these are two different approaches. T-Mobile is using the fallow capacity. Verizon is building a fixed wireless access network. Now, I do want to say very clearly that Verizon is also using a fallow capacity approach as well in that C band. But what has me very confident that Verizon is going to build and go deeper into this fixed wireless access is that these nodes are popping up within the neighborhoods. That is huge offloading from that fallow capacity that they want to build. So they're building a C-band network, right? They're upgrading sites, they're putting the C-band panel, but in the meantime, they're also building C-RAN millimeter wave nodes right outside of your front door in some cases, which gives Verizon exceptional flexibility. So in that neighborhood, for example, where they have that millimeter wave node, in some cases they have several millimeter wave nodes, they can do point to point with fixed wireless access and offload maybe 10, 20 homes, perhaps, that would have been on that fallow capacity. So now they can sell fixed wireless access to a group of other users in that area. But in the meantime, you know, they are offloading traffic, even mobile traffic in some instances, onto that millimeter wave. And most of you know millimeter wave has far more bandwidth, far more capacity, and is able to handle, that's the true bandwidth that I believe is able to handle multiple terabytes and not even flinch. And that's also built, that millimeter wave is also built on a different network, so to speak. It's not part of the same grid. It's optimized differently, but it works. And I see Verizon continuing to deepen that footprint. They've told us publicly that they're continuing to build thousands of millimeter wave nodes, and we're also seeing that happen. I'm seeing plenty of people post pictures. I've seen it in my area. I've seen the tech extremists post it. I've seen plenty of people posted that millimeter wave nodes are still going in the ground. And that shows you that Verizon is embracing the grind for real. So that means they have to build tons of millimeter wave nodes. They got to lay fiber. Then all of that has to go back to a hub, the C-RAN hub. They got to feed 100 gig fiber into that hub. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's very expensive. But the end result, I think structuring it this way, it really allows Verizon to be a big threat to any competition in the home broadband space, whether that be cable or fiber. They can compete against both, I feel, with very aggressive pricing. Now, I still think they need a TV solution. I still maintain that position. I said that plenty of times. But when it comes to that networking and how they strategized it, how they're building it, and what's to still come in the future on this fixed wireless access, I think Verizon is all in. I don't have concerns with Verizon growing that base to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, and that resulting in a ton of churn. I don't see that happening with Verizon. I think Verizon continues to invest in materializing the infrastructure where it's needed. They don't necessarily allow churn to get too crazy, in my opinion, from what's being seen out in the wild. They are building new sites, not because of fixed wireless access traffic, but they're continuing to build sites in advance. Verizon starts optimizing and planning and doing different things about 18 months out. And what I mean by optimizing is when you start seeing congestion, you start offloading certain users onto a secondary site that's nearby. And then when you do that, you start flagging the site to the local team to start, hey, we need to start planning for an offloading, macro offloading, small cells, several small cells that need offloading. We need to do a split sector. That's how they get flagged. And I think Verizon does that better than anyone. And I think they do it very aggressively in this new era, right? Fixed wireless access is new to these companies. Verizon is more familiar with it because they have Fios, but Verizon is very smart. They know 4K is becoming more mainstream, although it's not fully mainstream yet on cable, for example. But if you want, and certain users are doing it, you could have watched the Super Bowl in 4K. The World Cup was streamed in 4K, and there will be other events that will be streamed in 4K. And eventually, I think regular cable will also transition to 4K. So that's there, right? On the streaming platforms, most newer content is already on 4K. HBO Max, Netflix, Apple TV, Hulu, that's already transitioning to 4K. So that's already putting an additional strain onto the network because it requires more bandwidth to stream 4K. So we're seeing that. Now then we're going to get into 8K eventually as well. And that's a whole nother animal. That's going to require 100 megabits a second for one stream. That's ridiculous amounts of bandwidth. And fixed wireless access is, I know T-Mobile and Verizon aren't even looking that far ahead because that's not anywhere close to becoming mainstream. But it's something to already have in the planning process that, hey, this might be coming. We need to plan. Can we handle it? Do we need to do this? And I think Verizon is better equipped because they've already been building these millimeter wave nodes. I see them on the east side of my town in several neighborhoods. And it's not just they just put one and they leave. No, there are several of these millimeter wave small cell nodes throughout the neighborhood. And I know the reach isn't the best in terms of penetration, but if you have that point to point with an antenna, it does allow for that node to reach a house further away. You could put up a node on a street and it can cover a house that's a street behind it, in terms of reach. All it needs is a good solid window, and then you put that antenna there and it works. So from that perspective, I'm not too concerned about Verizon as much because they're not 100% relying on just that fallow capacity. T-Mobile right now, they have no plan in place to aggressively build more infrastructure for fixed wireless access. They are 100% using that fallow capacity to build that or to load up. And that's good too. Don't get me wrong, that's good too. I don't mind you monetizing that extra capacity. Why not, right? It's there. Mobile users are not going to use it, but got to keep in mind the usage patterns are growing fiercely. They are growing at big rates that we've never seen before. So to close out this video, I know it's a bit longer of a video, but I just want to give some very quick commentary on AT&T and fixed wireless access. They were not mentioned in this article at all. But, for those of you who stick around to the end of the videos, I do want to say I'm hearing that AT&T is struggling a bit on a bit more aggressive of an investment onto the C-band DoD situation because they are trying to figure out how do we monetize that utilization? How do we monetize all this extra capacity? So they're not doing fixed wireless access to any type of scale right now in the urban core. So there's going to be some users, and C-band, of course, in DoD has to get to more scale. But there's going to be a lot of times where the mobile user is going to do 700 megabits a second. And that's not being monetized right now. So that The mobile user is still paying the same bill every month, but yet they went from getting 50, 60, 70 megabits to 700 megabits a second. So their experience is not changing that drastically, and they're not paying more for it. But AT&T had to invest 40 billion to buy the spectrum, billions to deploy it. And yes, the capacity is there, but it's not being monetized. So I think AT&T may have to get into the fixed wireless access business, because in the short term, even midterm, I think that's going to be the quickest and fastest and best way for you to monetize. 25, 30 extra dollars to use. You can't charge extra for 5G because that'll be fuel to the fire for T-Mobile. If AT&T came out and said you're going to have to pay an extra $10 for it to use our C-band, that's not going to work. Not in this environment. So I think AT&T needs to scale that at least to the suburban with fixed wireless access. Maybe not the urban because of, the fiber situation, but there are still plenty of markets where AT&T doesn't have any broadband. So I think in markets where they have low market share on mobile, I think they need to consider doing fixed wireless access and incorporating that as monetization, because it's going to be tough to just have all that capacity floating out there on the mobile network and not really getting a return on investment on it. So I just wanted to leave that brief commentary, give you guys something to think about. I think the fixed wireless access story for AT&T is far from over. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the channel. Like, share, subscribe, follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.